The room was cloaked in darkness, the kind that seemed to swallow every corner and blur the edges of reality. A single flickering light overhead cast long, trembling shadows across the walls, painting the furniture in jagged, distorted shapes. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of dust and metal, and every breath felt like it carried weight. Somewhere, far off, a clock ticked, but it sounded closer than it should have, each second amplified, hammering in time with the human's heart. He stood alone in the center of the room, his body relaxed but alert, as though he could sense the tension before it even reached him. His hands hung loosely at his sides, his chest rising and falling with a calmness that seemed almost unnatural given the circumstances. Outside the faint reach of the dim light, shadows shifted unnervingly, as if the walls themselves were alive, breathing along with the predator that lurked beyond them. Then came the sound. Subtle at first, a whisper of movement, so soft it might have been imagined. But it was there, unmistakable. The floorboards groaned, a brush of air against the edge of a table, a faint metallic scrape. The human didn't flinch. He didn't even shift his gaze. His eyes, sharp and calculating, pierced the darkness with an intensity that seemed to make the shadows hesitate. Something had entered the room. Something not human. Not alive in any way that could be measured by normal senses. It moved with a precision that was both beautiful and terrifying, a predator in every sense of the word. Its form was indistinct in the dim light, a blur of sinew and muscle, every step silent and deliberate. Yet the room seemed to recognize it, the air tightening, pressing in around the human as if warning him to run. But he didn't run. He simply stood, a figure of unnerving calm, like the eye of a storm in the midst of chaos. Every instinct screamed danger, every fiber of his being begged him to flee, to hide, to fight. Yet he remained perfectly still. There was no fear in him, only awareness, a cold, calculated assessment of the threat. The predator paused, just beyond the range of the flickering light. Its head tilted slightly, as if confused by the lack of immediate reaction. In its world, in its hunting instinct, prey trembles, panics, cries out. Prey runs. Prey fights. This one did none of those things. It stood its ground. Silent. Calm. Unflinching. A faint hiss escaped the predator's throat, low and guttural, almost a question rather than a threat. The human's eyes never left it. He tilted his head slightly, not in fear, not in curiosity, but in acknowledgement, as if the creature's presence was something to be noted and catalogued, not reacted to. Every step the predator took was a study in lethal grace. Its claws clicked softly against the floor, a sound so delicate it could have been mistaken for a trick of the light. Its body was a shadow within shadows, muscles coiled and ready to spring, eyes glinting with a predatory hunger. And yet, for all its ferocity, it moved cautiously, almost reluctantly. There was something about this human that unsettled it, something it couldn't name but immediately sensed. Time stretched. Seconds became minutes. The human remained rooted in place, aware of every movement, every nuance of the predator's approach. He could feel it in the vibrations of the floor, the shift in the air around him, the way the shadows seemed to lean closer. And still, he did not flinch. A distant sound, the subtle drip of water from a leaky pipe, echoed through the room. The predator's head twitched at the noise, every sense scanning, analyzing, calculating. But the human's stillness did not waver. He exhaled slowly, a controlled, measured breath, his body as steady as stone. The predator paused. Its instincts screamed to strike, to end the threat before it could even fully manifest. Yet the calmness radiating from the human acted as a barrier, a shield of silent defiance. This prey did not panic. This prey did not invite fear. This prey offered nothing. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The flickering light overhead painted a strobe-like rhythm across the walls, and in that staccato dance of shadow and light, the predator studied its target. It was unnerving, the way it moved, and yet the human's unyielding gaze met every movement with unshakable composure. Then, as if acknowledging a silent challenge, the predator shifted slightly, circling, probing. Its presence filled the room, a tangible force pressing in from every angle. And still, the human did not move, did not speak, did not show the slightest hint of fear. It was a standoff. A battle without weapons, without sound. Death had entered the room, and yet, in that tension-soaked silence, the human remained perfectly calm. He was a fortress of stillness, a challenge to a creature designed to kill. And for the first time, the predator hesitated. In the dim, flickering light, the human's eyes never left the approaching shadow. He was ready, not to flee, not to beg, not to fight in the usual sense, but to face the predator head-on. The hunt had begun. But for now, the human remained unshaken. The shadow moved with unnerving precision, sliding over the floor without a sound, coiling like a living whip in the dim light. It was impossible to tell its size at first glance. Sometimes it seemed massive, other times unnervingly small, but its presence was undeniable. Every instinct of survival screamed in the human's mind, and yet his body remained still, a statue of composed awareness. The predator's eyes glinted in the faint flicker of the overhead light, a terrifying yellow that burned with hunger and calculation. They swept the room, mapping every inch, searching for weakness, searching for fear. Its breathing was low, methodical, almost musical in its rhythm, a predator's lullaby that demanded attention. It circled slowly, each step measured. Muscles coiled under slick, alien skin, each movement a warning. One strike and the human would be gone. But the human remained unwavering, his gaze locked onto the creature. There was no panic. No trembling. No hesitation. Only the sharp, focused calm of someone who had faced death before, or someone who understood it too well to be afraid. A faint hiss escaped the predator, an almost imperceptible growl vibrating through the air. Its ears, or whatever organs it used to hear, twitched, tracking the subtle sound of the human's heartbeat. Even that was steady. Perfectly steady. The predator crouched slightly, as if preparing to pounce. Every instinct screamed that this was the moment to strike, to end the threat. And yet, it paused. The stillness of its target unnerved it more than any scream could have. Most prey quiver, they beg, they scream for mercy. Not this one. It stepped closer, muscles rippling under taut skin, claws scraping lightly against the floor. The sound was almost imperceptible, but the predator knew it was heard. The human's eyes followed its movement with unbroken focus. No flinch, no twitch, no sign that the slightest threat had unsettled him. Time slowed, stretched like taffy. The predator froze mid-step. Its head tilted slightly, studying the human as if trying to decipher the anomaly. Everything it knew about hunting screamed that it should attack, that hesitation was fatal. But something about this human made it hesitate. Something in the calm, unwavering gaze suggested a confidence it had never encountered. The predator's jaw clicked, a mechanical, unnerving sound. Its tongue flicked in and out, tasting the air, analyzing the scent. This prey, it was unlike any other. No fear, no panic, no fight. Nothing to exploit. It circled again, a silent phantom in the dim light. The human shifted fractionally, enough to maintain awareness but not enough to betray concern. The predator's instincts screamed in confusion. It had encountered the brave before, the desperate, the reckless, but never the detached, never the unflinching calm. It did not understand. A soft, almost dismissive exhale escaped the human's lips. Just a whisper. But it carried weight. Authority. Ownership, or rather, the lack of it. The predator froze mid-step. Its instincts recoiled. This was not prey, it was something else entirely. Something untouchable in a way the creature could not comprehend. For the first time, the predator hesitated in its calculated movements. Every second stretched into an eternity. Its claws flexed and retracted, poised to strike, yet something in the human's stillness disrupted the rhythm of the hunt. The creature had killed countless beings without thought, without mercy. But this human challenged the very rules of predation. The predator's head swiveled, tracking every micro-movement, every subtle breath. It leaned forward slightly, almost sniffing, almost sensing, trying to find weakness in what seemed impervious. But the human did not offer one. Not a twitch, not a shiver, not even a flicker of unease. Finally, the predator let out a low hiss, a sound somewhere between frustration and curiosity. Its instincts screamed to attack, yet a deeper, almost alien intelligence made it pause. Perhaps it sensed that this human was no ordinary prey. Perhaps it felt the weight of something unseen, something unspoken. The room was silent except for the soft scrape of claws across the floor and the predator's low, methodical breathing. Time became elastic, stretched by the predator's indecision and the human's unwavering calm. It circled once more, slower this time, almost respectfully, almost cautiously. And then, for the briefest of moments, the predator stopped. Its gaze locked onto the human's eyes, and in that instant, there was recognition, an acknowledgement that this was not an ordinary confrontation. Not a simple hunt. There was intelligence here, a calm mastery that defied instinct, and for a moment, the predator understood that the hunt might not end in its favor. It was the predator's first moment of hesitation in this human's presence. And for the human, that pause was all the confirmation he needed. He remained calm, unflinching, and utterly aware. The predator had entered his domain, but it had not yet won. The air in the room had changed. It was heavier now, charged with a silent electricity that seemed to vibrate in the very walls. Every shadow quivered as the predator's gaze tracked the human, calculating, probing, seeking the slightest sign of weakness. Every instinct it possessed screamed for the strike that should have ended it all. Yet, inexplicably, it did not move. The human shifted slightly, just enough to adjust his stance, but still no fear crossed his face. His eyes remained locked on the predator, unblinking and unyielding. It was an unnatural calm, one that unsettled even the most primal instincts of the creature. Most prey, it thought, would have begged, panicked, cried out for mercy long before this point. This one offered nothing. Not fear. Not hesitation. Not surrender. A low hiss escaped the predator's throat, vibrating the air in the small room. The sound was harsh and guttural, meant to intimidate, to assert dominance, to remind its prey of the futility of resistance. But the human did not flinch. Instead, he exhaled, slow and deliberate, as if the sound itself was meaningless, an afterthought. The predator tilted its head slightly, a twitch of confusion passing through its alien features. It had hunted countless beings, creatures designed to flee, designed to fear, designed to die in predictable patterns. But this human broke every rule it knew. There was no pattern here, only silence, focus, and a presence that refused to yield. Time stretched thin, each second ticking by with agonizing deliberation. The predator prowled, circling once more, claws flexing and retracting with soft, almost inaudible clicks against the floor. Its head swiveled, analyzing every micro-expression, every subtle shift in weight, every tiny breath. It was searching for the flaw, the tiny crack in the armor it instinctively knew must exist. And then it heard the faintest sound, a whisper of a word, so soft it could have been mistaken for the wind moving through the cracks in the walls. Not. The human's voice was calm, almost detached. Mine. The predator froze. The words hung in the air like a weapon, slicing through the tension with a sharpness the creature could not ignore. Its eyes narrowed, scanning the human with renewed scrutiny. Something about the tone, the certainty, the utter lack of fear, stopped it dead. It had encountered bravado, aggression, even cleverness in its hunts before. But this was different. This was calm mastery. A claim not of territory, not of possession, but of self-awareness, of detachment. The predator could not understand it. Its instincts screamed to strike, to dominate, to assert control. Yet every fiber of its being recoiled, confused by the absolute stillness of its target. The human's gaze never wavered. He did not move to threaten, did not raise a weapon, did not even flex his muscles in preparation. He simply stood there, steady, eyes locked on the predator, calm and unshakable. The faintest smirk touched his lips, a subtle acknowledgement of the predator's pause, a small victory carved out in the silence. For the first time, the predator's movements became hesitant. It circled more slowly now, a predator unsure of its prey. Its claws scraped lightly against the floor, the sound a tentative rhythm in the otherwise silent room. It tilted its head, studied the human, analyzed every breath, every heartbeat, every imperceptible twitch. And still, it found nothing. The tension in the room was palpable, a living thing that pressed down on the predator and the human alike. Every instinct of the creature screamed at it to act, but the human's calm, deliberate declaration had shifted something fundamental. The rules had changed. The predator no longer controlled the rhythm of the encounter. A soft hiss escaped the predator's throat, almost questioning now, almost hesitant. Its eyes darted from the human's steady gaze to the dark corners of the room, searching for escape, for reason, for some sign that the situation was not as unnatural as it felt. There was none. Seconds stretched into minutes, each one heavy with anticipation. The predator's breathing became more measured, less aggressive. The human remained unwavering, a pillar of cold, unflinching control. In that moment, the room seemed to shrink, the shadows leaning closer, the air taut with tension so sharp it could cut. The predator's claws flexed, then relaxed, then flexed again. It had come to kill, to dominate, to assert its lethal superiority. And yet, it remained frozen in place. The human had claimed something it could not touch, something beyond fear, beyond instinct. Finally, the predator lowered its stance slightly, not out of submission, but uncertainty. It paused mid-step, head cocked, eyes locked on the human. That single, deliberate whisper, "Not mine," had stopped a creature designed to hunt without hesitation. And for the human, that pause was everything. He exhaled again, slow, controlled, and unwavering. The tension hung like a storm cloud above them, waiting, electric, alive. Death was in the room. But for now, it waited too, and the human stood unmoved, calm, and completely untouchable. The predator's breathing grew quieter, more deliberate, as if it were holding itself together against a force it could not name. Its claws flexed and retracted repeatedly, dragging soft scratches across the floor, the faintest echoes in the charged silence. Every inch it advanced was measured, deliberate, but every inch seemed slower, more tentative than its instincts demanded. The human did not move. He did not flinch, did not raise a hand, did not even shift his weight to prepare for an attack. He simply stood, unwavering, eyes locked on the predator, unblinking and unafraid. There was a calm in him that radiated outward, a presence so unyielding that even the predator could feel it pressing against its senses. It circled once more, this time closer, careful not to cross an invisible line it could not understand. Its alien features twisted in concentration, confusion, frustration. Every sense screamed that this should be easy, that the kill should be effortless, but it wasn't. The human's calm, controlled presence was like a wall, a barrier that could not be broken by claws, teeth, or instinct. The predator crouched slightly, muscles taut and ready, its eyes narrowing into slits. For a moment, it seemed poised to strike, to test the human, to see if any hint of fear might betray weakness. And yet, the human remained motionless, a rock in the midst of the storm. He did not flinch, did not blink too rapidly, did not breathe unevenly. Every instinct the predator had relied upon in countless hunts was being challenged, defied, nullified. A low growl rumbled in its throat, deep and guttural, a warning meant to assert dominance, meant to test boundaries. The human's lips barely moved, yet the words that followed carried a weight far greater than any roar, "Not mine." The predator froze mid-step. Its claws clicked softly against the floor as it halted, head tilted, eyes narrowing. It had no understanding of the phrase, of course. But it understood the effect. The human's calm, deliberate words carried authority, a confidence that commanded recognition even from a being that lived to kill. The instinct to attack wavered, then faltered. Time seemed to slow. The predator's muscles twitched, ready to spring, but something stopped it, something primal, something beyond reason. The human's gaze never wavered, unwavering, unshaken, a constant assertion of control. In that moment, the predator realized it was facing not prey, but a presence it could not predict, could not dominate, and could not destroy without understanding. The room held its breath. Shadows danced in the flickering light, exaggerating the predator's hesitation and the human's calm. The faint scrape of claws against the floor became a heartbeat in the silence, marking the tense standoff. The predator's head swiveled, analyzing, calculating, weighing options. It could attack, but the consequences were uncertain. It could retreat, but pride and instinct demanded confrontation. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the predator began to back away. Not fully, not yet, but the shift was undeniable. The tension in its body softened, the rigid poise of the hunter giving way to caution, the predator's calculation overridden by the human's quiet dominance. The human exhaled softly, a sound as controlled and deliberate as his every movement. He did not advance, he did not provoke. He simply stood, a pillar of cold assurance, as the predator assessed, retreated, and reconsidered. For the first time in its life, it faced a creature that offered nothing to exploit, nothing to fear, nothing to fight against in the conventional sense. Every step the predator took backward was slow, measured, its eyes never leaving the human. It was an acknowledgement, subtle but undeniable, that this hunt was no longer governed by instinct alone. The human's calm had shifted the balance, had redefined the rules. The predator paused again, muscles coiled, eyes narrowing. It was still dangerous, still lethal, still capable of striking in an instant. Yet the standoff had shifted decisively. It was no longer the predator in control. The human's presence, his unwavering stillness, his absolute calm, had claimed that control. The room seemed impossibly quiet, the shadows leaning closer as if to witness the unspoken agreement forming between predator and prey. The predator's head tilted slightly, studying, calculating, understanding that in this standoff, no attack would come, no prey would falter. The human had made it clear, there was nothing here to claim, nothing to take, nothing to provoke. And in that tension-soaked moment, the predator took the smallest, most deliberate step backward. A silent concession. A recognition of the human's dominance not through force, but through presence. The standoff had ended, not with a strike, but with a pause, a hesitation that spoke volumes. Death had entered the room. It had come to hunt, to dominate, to kill. And yet, faced with the human's calm and unwavering presence, it had stopped. For now, it waited, uncertain, wary, defeated not by strength, but by control. The human exhaled once more, slowly, deliberately, and the predator froze, caught in a moment it could not understand. The room remained quiet, the shadows still, the tension almost tangible. For the first time, the predator realized that presence, not violence, could command respect. And that realization would haunt it far longer than any battle. The room was deathly quiet, broken only by the soft scrape of claws against the floor as the predator paused mid-step, hesitant. Its body, a coiled instrument of lethal power, remained rigid, but every movement now was measured, tentative. It had entered this place with a singular purpose: to hunt, to dominate, to kill. And yet, it had found nothing to attack, nothing to fear, and nothing to claim. The human remained in the center of the room, perfectly still, eyes locked on the predator with a calm that radiated authority. Every breath he took was deliberate, every movement minimal. There was no fear, no hesitation, only an unwavering presence that seemed to press against the predator's senses, bending instinct and reason alike. The predator's head tilted, once, twice, studying the human as if attempting to decipher the anomaly. It had encountered courage before, recklessness, aggression, but never this. This was not desperation. This was not bravado. This was something else entirely. A quiet mastery that defied the very rules of predation. For a heartbeat, the predator remained frozen, claws flexing and retracting against the floor, muscles taut like springs. Its eyes glimmered with an alien intelligence, calculating, analyzing, weighing the impossible. The human's voice, calm and detached, had uttered two simple words: "Not mine." And in those words, the predator recognized a force it could neither understand nor overpower. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, it began to back away. Each step was deliberate, careful, cautious. It did not turn its back, it could not risk that. Its gaze remained locked on the human, scanning for any hint of movement, any sign of weakness. But there was none. The human did not advance, did not threaten, did not flinch. He was an unshakable presence, a fortress of calm in the eye of a storm. The predator hesitated again, mid-step. Its instinct screamed at it to attack, to assert dominance, to finish the hunt that had begun so easily. And yet, something about the human's unwavering stillness, the absolute lack of fear, the effortless command of the space, it disarmed the predator more completely than any weapon ever could. It took another step backward. Then another. The tension in the room became almost tangible, a living thing pressing against the walls, pressing against the predator, pressing against the human. Shadows leaned closer, flickering in the dim light, as if the very darkness were watching, waiting, acknowledging the silent victory being claimed. Finally, the predator made a choice. It retreated, slowly, deliberately, until the edge of the room separated it from the human. Its steps were calculated, cautious, every muscle coiled in readiness should the unexpected occur. But the unexpected did not. The human remained still, eyes unbroken, posture steady, calm. The predator paused one final time, a low hiss escaping its throat, a mixture of frustration, respect, and disbelief. It had entered to kill. It had sought dominance. And yet, it had been stopped not by force, not by weapons, not by numbers, but by calm, by presence, by the unflinching assertion of self. And then, with a fluid grace that belied the tension in its body, the predator vanished into the shadows from which it had come. The room grew quieter instantly, the oppressive weight lifting with its departure. The flickering light overhead steadied. The shadows settled. The silence returned, heavy but no longer threatening. The human exhaled, slow and controlled, his chest rising and falling with calm precision. He did not move to celebrate. There was no triumph in his actions, only awareness, focus, and the quiet knowledge that he had faced death and stood unmoved. The room was empty now, save for the faint echoes of claws against the floor, memories of a predator that had come and gone. It had been close. Too close. But it had left. And in its absence, the human remained, steadfast, untouched, unshaken. Death had entered the room. It had sought to claim, to hunt, to kill. And yet, confronted with calm, control, and unyielding presence, it had left without a fight. The predator had learned something in those moments, a lesson that would linger far longer than any physical wound. Some prey could not be hunted, could not be dominated, and could not be broken. Some prey were untouchable, not because of strength, but because of the quiet power of their presence. And the human, standing alone in the dim light, knew it.